At this time, I'll call the meeting to order. I need to mute that. We'll do a roll call. We'll do Ned. I see you're on. Mr. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Francis. No. Mr. Henson. Is he on?
He's here.
Yeah, I see. Okay. Mr. Kirkpatrick.
Here. You've got to fix your mic, killing me.
Ms. Morris.
Here.
Mr. Nesbitt. Okay. Mr. Rogers. I see. Okay, the meeting is called to order. On the chairman's announcement, our meeting will be held at the Education Center on July the 10th, 7 p.m. At this time, I need a motion for approval of the agenda.
So move, Mr. Chairman. We got a back, so you're going to do twice.
Ms. Jackson. Didn't speak back.
Let's pause for just a moment and see if she can fix it.
Okay.
I've got you on twice. And it's echoing.
All right. It was because, no, it's still doing it. I've got Kim on the phone.
Okay.
It seems corrected.
Yeah, she muted the live feed, looks like. Okay, we had a motion, best I can recall. We had a motion.
Yeah.
Rogers.
I tried, yeah.
Mr. Burnett, is that right? Okay, Mr. Burnett has seconded the motion. All right, all those in favor, I'll go down the roll call again to get it. In favor of the agenda approval, Mr. Burnett, are you? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Henson.
Yes.
Mr. Kirkpatrick.
Yes.
Ms. Morris.
Yes.
Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries unanimously for those that are in attendance. Okay, we have next item on our agenda is Dr. Putnam is going to present an item for us.
All right, I'll get us started, and I'll ask Graham Haynes to jump in and assist at any time. So the first item is for the property acquisition of 237 Ratcliffe Cove Road. As you well know, there's been a due diligence period and exploration of this property. This property has had to be considered by the Waynesville Planning Board as well as Waynesville Town Council for rezoning for purposes of the board. All of those processes are complete. The findings, I'm going to ask Graham, if you'll just go through all the results from the due diligence and land exploration.
Sure. As we discussed in the work session that we had a little bit about this, so all the due diligence has been completed and has come back. The property, just to remember, it was 28.69 acres there off Ratcliffe Cove, 237 Ratcliffe Cove Road. In that due diligence, we did a stream and wetland. There was 0.036 acres in the northwestern corner of the property, which really isn't a place that we would build anyway. That did have just a tiny little wetland that was found there. The soil borings that we got done, there were 10 samples scattered throughout the property, all of which came back exactly the way they should. The three closest to the creek that runs on the property, there was water. I believe it was about 7 feet that started coming out, groundwater, and the other ones they drilled all the way down to 20, and there was no groundwater. So everything was good there. We did the phase 1 environmental site assessment, and all of that came back all clear as well. So there were no things on the property that we were unaware of that would be environmentally unfriendly to us or anything else. And then lastly was the zoning, which the town council voted on the 23rd of May. To approve that we are allowed to, or to approve to rezone the property to Raccoon Creek mixed use overlay governmental services only, 10 days after we assumed the deed and actually, own the property. So that was good there too. We got the designs from CDC that you all have reviewed as well. And that's kind of where we're at. So that's the due diligence study, and all of it did come back favorable.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes.
You're welcome.
And I will just add that the board has explored a multitude of properties in various locations. And upon that exploration of all those varied parcels, this particular parcel has some things that some of the others we looked at may or may not have had. They certainly did not have all of them. One is the proximity to the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction main fiber line. I'm sure that's not the technically correct term, but basically that fiber line is what connects every school in North Carolina. And within a half mile of that fiber line, the state actually pays for the connection. And, we've looked at this property for relocating our flood-prone IT infrastructure. And just for those who might be listening, that IT infrastructure currently located at the old Central Haywood High School is what completes day-to-day operations for every facility and school we have in Haywood County Schools. And so it's very important that be in a protected and secure spot. And then with that, being sure that we can connect to that main fiber line. The next is we have a few schools, a few facilities that have waste treatment plants, if you will, and those are often problematic. So the second thing that this land possesses is municipal water and sewer. So we're thankful that this parcel has that as well. And then a third, and lastly, I would say it's proximity. If you drop a pin on that property, the maximum you're looking at travel and response time to any of our schools or facilities is about 15 minutes. It's less in some cases. And the only exception to that is Meadowbrook. And, it's hard to get into Meadowbrook because Meadowbrook is a good bit. There's not a good travel to there. So, but that said, all of our schools and facilities, its proximity is about 15 minutes in travel to any one of those. So those are the three big things proximity to the main fiber line, and the free connection that the state offers by being within a half mile. The ability to have city sewer and water, and then proximity to our schools.
Okay. I just wanted to make a note as well that Mr. Nesbitt joined us a few minutes ago, and so we have Mr. Nesbitt with us as well at this point in time. At this time, I would seek a motion to approve the purchase of that property, and then we can have discussion after we get a motion on the floor.
Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the purchase of the Ratcliffe Cove Road property, pending on some further discussion.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I will second that motion.
Okay, Mr. Kirkpatrick's seconded the motion. I know there's questions, discussion, or I assume there is. Is there any questions or comments for Mr. Haynes or Mr. Putnam or our attorney?
First of all, Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask about the funding of this project. Is the county still on board with their offer of the $4 million, or are we still having some issues with this?
I'll answer that, Mr. Rogers. So the county is right now considering all things. They're kind of like us. They have to consider projects that align with their best interests as well, and that is unknown at this time.
Okay, so the other funding to purchase this is coming from some of the state money, I think, is, if I recall right, and also the some of the FEMA money.
Yes, sir. That would be correct.
Okay.
So I guess the thinking, and I haven't sat in building and grounds in a bit. I've been in finance, but I believe, and you correct me at any time, any of you correct me at any time, the thinking is this parcel is substantial enough to accommodate a multitude of priorities that could be met on this particular property. We know minimally that it will accommodate, very minimally, it will accommodate our IT infrastructure and boardroom that is located in the flood-prone property in Clyde that it currently rests at. And there is $2.5 million available through North Carolina Emergency Management Funds, and those funds will not be available for any other project or property than our flood-related items, and that is our IT infrastructure and our boardroom. So $2.5 million available there. Now, obviously, it's like anything else. There are guidelines with that money and how it can be spent, and we have to meet those guidelines. But it's $2.5 million we would not ordinarily have available to us. I can tell you that we maintain a healthy capital fund balance. And for those that might be listening, the capital fund balance is generated through state sales tax. And state sales tax is what we are currently using to pay off a general obligation bond for the elementary schools that were built in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's what we pull money from to make repairs and in small capital projects throughout the year. And just most recently, the fund that we use to free up some device replacement dollars. But it may not be used. It's unlawful to use any of those dollars as an operating expense. Believe me, we've tried, because no one wants to be the superintendent who has to make employment cuts. So we did try using those dollars, but it is unlawful.
That's what I was wanting to explain. Thank you, Dr. Putnam, because I wanted the public to realize that these funds can only be used for this purpose, and we're not, with us having to maybe possibly cut teachers or staff members. I'm just hoping the public can understand that we're not using funds that would affect their job status or employment with Hampton County Schools.
Yes, sir. And for anyone who might be interested, you can check my facts at the North Carolina Department of Revenue, or NCDOR. Any of the information that I've just shared is available as a matter of public record and via the website. So none of those dollars can be spent in operating costs.
Okay. Any other questions?
I was just going to say, the dollars that we're using to buy the property. Now, the property, what was the price on that, Mr. Haynes?
The current asking price on the property is 1.85, but in talks with the property owner, we'll be looking at 1.68.
All right. What you were saying about the funds, the capital funds, Dr. Putnam. Now, the funds that we're using to buy the property, those are the funds that, like you said at the beginning, is the funds that are being funded from the state, which is the flood relocation funds. That's probably not the correct terminology. I think you used another terminology. But the money that we're using to buy the property, it's not even coming out of capital outlay fund balance that we get through state, so on, so on. The money that we're using to buy this property is coming straight from the flood funds, correct?
I'll give you a rough breakdown, not down to the penny. The North Carolina Emergency Management Funds, or flood-related funds, as you called them, approximately $800,000 of that $2.5 million will go toward the purchase of this property. The reason all of the money cannot go toward the property is because we have to be able to show that every inch of that property is for the replacement or the relocation of our IT infrastructure and our boardroom. And so if you look at the footprint, we had some preliminary sketches. Approximately half the property will be used to house those properties, those facilities that we wish to relocate. Therefore, we're eligible to use about $800,000, which is half the cost of the property, toward the purchase.
The rest of those funds, the rest of the 2.5 million, though, would be able to be used on the building itself and the site work and things like that. So it will all go towards the project.
Thank you. That's a good clarification.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I'm sort of the only worrisome, the only thing, the concern that I'm having is the first conversation that we had right before. You're saying that the county commissioners, in talking with them, they have not gave you a confirmed yes that the property where the landfill is, where we have our bus maintenance garage, we have not got yes, we are still following through with that deal. Is that what I mean?
We, the county manager and myself continue to discuss other opportunities that are both helpful to them as well as us. But as far as a firm yes at this point, that is not a firm yes at this point. It looks hopeful. But he's like me, there's lots of variables that come into play and make that difficult to know. Um, but, I think to purchase the property solely on that fact would be a mistake because, things happen and ideas don't materialize and fall through. What I can tell you though is any large tract purchase at this point in time, with these large tracts quickly being bought up and turned into housing developments and other things, any large tract that is found even somewhat useful to the school system, which we already know it to be very useful because we will be able to relocate flood properties, is a good idea.
Any other questions or comments?
So right now, we would only look at purchasing the land. It would be down the road before we could start any projects with IT building or the boardroom, or would there be enough funds to start moving forward with that project? Are we just trying to get the land right now?
So, we can't use any of the 2.5 million without full intent to proceed with relocating our IT infrastructure and facilities. And we cannot move forward without planning or intending to relocate the boardroom. And I think it's also important for the public to know that our boardroom also is a useful training room. We use that. Matter of fact, we maintain a Google Calendar just to keep up with all the people who want to use it for various training opportunities. But those two facilities, the board/training room, as well as our IT infrastructure that is housed on the property in Clyde, both of those, we would have to see those projects through. Otherwise, we would not be eligible for the property. And you can certainly understand that. The state does not want to commit funds for the purposes of flood elimination, and then that doesn't in fact happen. And with it just being land, well, then that means our facilities are still in a floodway. So we certainly want to remedy that and follow through on our commitment to relocate.
So as soon as the land is purchased, what's the expected time to start those? If that passes today, like what's expected time to start those projects?
Yeah, unfortunately, with all the walkthroughs that have to be done, there's lots of checks and balances. The first thing we would need, all that we've done to this point, and that's been a point of confusion for some, all we've done at this point is make sure it's good, suitable land. And we have also made sure through civil design concepts, through some preliminary sketches, that yes, a building footprint to accommodate IT or our technology infrastructure and the boardroom would fit. But those plans they're not in depth. There's greater detail and a more exhaustive design work has to be done. It was really just to say, yep, the land looks suitable, and yes, it will house the facilities you have indicated at this point. So it'll have to go into design phase, and we have to do an RFP for that and make a request from several designers to put in on the project, and then you as a board would select one of those designers or architects. And after the plans were complete, those plans would be presented to the board, and you will either approve or disapprove. But if you approve them, then the next phase is to put those plans out to contractors and let contractors bid on those plans and tell us what they think they can build the project for. And again, that would come back to you, and you would select a bidder or a contractor that has bid on the project. And then once that's complete, then construction would begin as soon as that bidder could schedule the work. So you can see it walks through every step. It gives everybody an opportunity, number one, to bid on the design and bid on the build of the project. And then it gives all of you an opportunity to evaluate and vote on, each step of the process.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions, comments? If not, we will vote. I'll do it by roll call if that's the way we've been doing it. Mr. Burnett.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Henson.
Yay.
Mr. Kirkpatrick.
Yes.
Ms. Morris.
Yes.
Mr. Nesbitt. I see he's giving me affirmative. Okay. Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody, for the good questions. It clarified a lot of things for me as well. Those of us that have not been sitting in the building and grounds meetings, that helps us understand more and more about this project and where the funding's coming from. And I appreciate the detail that was given. And thank you so much, Graham, and the building and grounds for the hard work. It's been a long time, a lot of due diligence. We proceeded very cautiously and carefully and thoughtfully, and I appreciate that very much. Next, we have on the agenda is Ms. Taylor Garland.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. It is that time of year again where we are coming to you to request approval of our 2023-2024 workers' compensation insurance provider. This is only for any employee that is not funded from state funds. So it's local, federal funds, and Fund 8 employees. This year we requested quotes from several providers. You should have access to those on the Moodle page. The first one come in from Prescient. That is our current provider of workers' comp at $205,230. The next quote is from the North Carolina School Board Trust. That quote came in at $187,641. And then the third quote is from EMC. EMC currently provides our automobile insurance, our general liability insurance, and our umbrella insurance. And their quote came in at $145,126. We did, I think, Mr. Hines as well as myself reach out to some other counties who use the School Board Trust and EMC for their workers' comp provider. And everyone had great things to say that I talked to. I won't speak on his behalf, but they said both companies are excellent to work with. They're great. They respond quickly. So with that said, it is my recommendation that you accept the EMC quote for $145,126.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we do approve the workman's comp insurance with the company EMC, please.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Rogers. Do I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Burnett made the second. Any question or discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate Ms. Taylor's hard work and Mr. Hines on this, because that's a great savings right there. And I mean, workman's comp's pretty well regulated by the state and everything, so everything's pretty well even, and it has to be provided. And I was glad that they worked hard to get EMC to bundle our packages and come up with such a great rate for our school system.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Can I ask, what were the other schools that used the EMC, Miss Taylor?
Just the three off the top of my head are Clay, Buncombe, and McDowell. There is a list on, I believe, the second attachment from EMC that shows all of the school systems using them, and it is over 30.
Oh,
So they have
wonderful.
quite a few with them.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hines, could I ask you to comment any of your findings?
They were very similar to what Taylor was able to find. I had Angie Balance, the one that does workers' comp, where the rubber meets the road, talks to the employees, talks to the company, and is the liaison between the two. Call the other school districts and talk to their person in the same position to see what they had to say about it. And they all had good things to say about EMC. The only one that had anything negative was Buncombe. They just said if you ever made a mistake on any of the paperwork or any of the statements, that they were not willing to reconsider. But that was the only negative comment.
Any other questions or comments before we vote?
Ms. Marley, it looks like there's about 46 school districts, according to what I could see on there with EMC.
Oh, wow, thank you.
Very good. Very good. Okay, any other comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, I will just make one, and I'm not using this to deter the decision or the motion before you right now. I do want you to know that typically once they see your current claims, once these companies see your current claims, I don't want you to think you're signing in for a better deal ongoing. Once they learn of our unique needs and claims we have against us, that's likely to inflate. But we can certainly revisit it and reevaluate it at the end of next year. It would just be ill-advised to switch to a more affordable provider if the service was not as good. But that's not what I'm hearing Mr. Hines or Ms. Garland say.
That's correct. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we'll vote then. I will do a roll call again. Mr. Burnett.
Yay.
Mr. Clark.
Yay.
Mr. Henson.
Yay.
Mr. Kirkpatrick.
Yay.
Ms. Morris.
Yay.
Mr. Nesbitt. Thumbs up, I see it. Okay, Mr. Rogers.
Yay.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thanks everyone for your time today, and appreciate you being willing to join through virtually. That saves us a lot of time and effort, and I sure appreciate that. And but we will of course meet back in person at our regular meeting coming up in July. I have nothing else, so at this point I'm going to call the meeting adjourned.